Hello, hello, and welcome to the beautiful Cat Duval from Nine Lives Yoga. Good morning.
Hi, Susi. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
I am good, and I'm so excited to have you here. So, Kat and I met, I don't know how long ago, but through a membership group, business membership group that we were part of. And Kat came and shared her wisdom in my membership about a year and a half ago, I think. So yeah, super excited to connect again, see where you're at, what's going on, share your wisdom with this beautiful just not just podcast community, IGTV or YouTube, wherever you're watching this. But yeah, Kat, do you want to just share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Susie, and thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here as well. Yeah, so I have been working for the last 20 years in the yoga and wellness industry, and I went to full-time freelance now 11 years ago. So I coach yoga lovers and purpose-led professionals to bounce back from burnout, to turn overwhelm and overwork into wild inspiration through simple, happy habits so that they can focus their mind, so that they can do sacred scheduling and hold healthy boundaries, and show up more in their lives. So show up more within their relationships and have adventures with loved ones and have time for self-care.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, make their vision of success a reality.
I love that. There's so many bits that I want to ask you about in what you've just said that I'm just like, yes, this is awesome. Really excited to chat with you more deeply. So you mentioned you've kind of worked in that environment for like almost 2 decades, but what was your view? Is that kind of what you've always done, or what did you do before that? What kind of drew you to work in that environment?
Well, I used to work in the music business, and I saw people and myself working around the clock, usually nocturnally. And there's a hell of a lot of alcohol and drugs in that industry. And I actually lost a friend, and it brought me to yoga. And there's also, in the big wide world, so much bravado that we have to, we're expected to have, and it's very egoic, and it's very sort of don't reveal weakness, that kind of mentality. I just found it quite debilitating emotionally. And when I had something quite intense to go through, I really wanted to be able to tap into what that was and be present. And yoga practice, initially, I joke and say that I came to it and didn't realize you could get that high naturally. But it was very much because I was the organizer. I was doing festival events, stage management, and I set up a radio station, Radio Reverb, down here in Brighton, which now still goes, which is great. And it was amazing times. But yeah, very much the sort of nocturnal lifestyle, and very much surrounded by things that are going to take you off the path of your soul calling. And so I explored yoga first of all in just an LA Fitness, and the teacher that was there was a Shivananda teacher, and she took me through the sun salutations. So really simple, but she used the power of visualization, she used the meditation, she used the breath. She was very holistic. Shivananda is very good at bringing in all the 8 limbs of yoga into your one limb, your asana practice, your stretching practice, which is, the famous limb of yoga. And it just changed my perspective. It completely opened me up to this way of being that allowed me to feel okay in my imperfection, to be more compassionate and loving, and focusing on things like gratitude. And, it had an element of wholeness that I really hadn't seen in other parts of, certainly my professional life. Don't get me wrong, my family are very loving, but of course, every family has their my parents didn't get on with each other very much, and they're both now happily remarried, which is wonderful. But definitely we went through a journey of kind of processing the emotion around that, and there was quite a bit of fighting in my house. And so I also was a youth worker for a time as well, and did community arts projects. So it's always arts and creativity. And so coming to yoga, there came a time when I really wanted to bring that in. And so I launched yoga raves, and they took off completely.
I can imagine that. I think that would be like that, like probably my age group. So I'm 42. Like a lot of us who previously were ravers are now very deep in our spiritual practice of recovery. You know, and yeah, yoga raves, epic, love it.
Isn't that funny? I know, me too, 42, hello.
Oh my God.
Snap. Yeah. And it was, well, the challenge was, you know, I was really sort of, what excites me about that concept is the invitation to new people into yoga that think, oh, that's not for me, I'm not bendy enough, or I'm not spiritual enough, or maybe it's a little bit too sort of lofty for me. And I wanted to invite those people that had those kind of worries and fears into a space that they felt comfortable. Really amazing music, beautiful surroundings. Like I try and do the yoga raves in a stunning environment so that you walk in and you immediately feel, oh, wow, you know, and that would be added when we're doing our breathwork practice and the asana practice. And pre-COVID, we'd all do collaborative yoga practice, so everyone would have their arms around each other, and we'd be in concentric circles, and you'd be performing this thing that you just felt ridiculously connected with everybody, regardless of whether you'd met them before or not. And that was magic, because people went really much deeper in their practice, much deeper in their meditation. They felt really connected to their hearts, you know. And I had people blaming me for getting together.
Matchmaking via yoga rave, love it.
Well, that's it. And people could show up on their own, you know, and make friends by the end. And of course, it's amazing if people are in a recovery, and you know, people, you know, don't want to be around booze and drugs, and you know, and it also, yoga, sometimes yoga teachers and the professionals in yoga, you know, we need to let our hair down a little bit.
Absolutely.
You know, there's lots of self-awareness and lots of discipline, but that needs to be, we need to shake that off sometimes. So it kind of married the two together, and we ended up touring. I've been touring the UK festival circuit and around Scandinavia with yoga raves now for the last 5-6 years.
Oh my gosh, we
and
seriously need to talk about this more after this podcast. I am so up for this. It's so good.
And I mean, that led to a spin-off. That actually led to a spin-off, which was yoga parties, which are private yoga parties for people's birthdays and hen parties and celebratory events and team building even. That again, you know, you'd have that people that loved yoga and were sort of good at yoga, whatever that means. You'd be able to, you'd have the yoga lovers that are already sold on the idea of yoga coming and letting their hair down, and then you'd have the people that were completely new to yoga feeling like, oh, this is a way in that I can have fun with it, and I don't need to feel silly, and I don't need to feel like I'm going to look stupid. I can just have fun. And then they, you know, the sideline is, oh, and by the way, I might have an amazing spiritual experience, you know. So that was quite a surprise, and I think the universe works in mysterious ways, you know, and it's very much around celebration, which is the fourth pillar of happiness. You know, my 4 pillars of happiness is play. And celebration is part of that. You know, we need to, so often when we grow up and become grown-ups and adults, and we sort of we feel that there's so many responsibilities, and that sense of celebration is either associated with booze and drugs from experiences in our 20s, you know, or it's forgotten completely, and people get very serious and then wonder why they don't feel so happy. So the sense of play, whilst it's really fun and amazing, it also has, you know, it has a real meaning and purpose, which are the other, you know, purposes as the third limb and the third pillar of happiness. Peace, power, purpose, and play.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I want to return to something you said there about, how you came into yoga after kind of the death of your friend, and almost looking for that space to explore that emotions, obviously minus alcohol, minus drugs, those kind of things. And that was something that really came up for me. And I think a lot of people who are possibly struggling with grief or big emotions often turn to alcohol or those kind of things as a coping mechanism, the things which actually, exacerbate the situation. And I know it'll be 4 years in March since I've drank alcohol. And I know that, thanks. I know that I cut back whilst my mum was going through chemo and terminal illness, for that very reason, because, and I think this is like a really valuable thing for people to kind of process. Often we try to hide from those emotions, when actually being with those emotions with a clear head and a clear heart and allowing to feel them can actually be so powerful, because I know that really helped me process the grief in a more manageable way than suppressing them, drinking through them. And I've seen so many other loved ones go the other way with grief or big things that have happened, where they've turned to alcohol or, as you say, drugs or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really valuable lesson, isn't it?
There's stages of grief, and there's I'm not a grief expert, but when you're, from a yogic perspective, when we are present with our emotions, true experience of life is about being authentic to what is and who we are and where we're at and what we're experiencing. And so any feelings, there are no such thing as bad feelings, they're sort of demonizing the feelings that aren't so celebratory is a recipe for disaster, because we're just pushing them underground. And we see people having psychosomatic health issues because of emotional and mental states that they're not prepared to acknowledge on the surface. And so
that was absolutely me for years, having psychosomatic illness and chronic illness due to mental issues, not actual physical issues.
And that's it. That is so common, you're so not alone in that. And I think we've all done it at some stage where there's something that we're really not, I had I won't go into it now, but a big thing with my sibling, and the only way really to truly resolve the feelings inside are to acknowledge what they are. And that's, there are things like nonviolent communication that can be really helpful in helping us actually communicate those, because doing it without blame and doing it without sort of pointing the finger or feeling like the victim is really important. Because if we just acknowledge what is happening, then it allows us to healthily process that. And it's in the processing that allows us then to reach true authentic happiness. Happiness isn't walking around in a state of hedonistic euphoria. Happiness is actually processing what is going on in our lives and learning to love what our life actually is. And it runs through everything. It runs through yoga, it runs through our personal relationships, it runs through our professional goals, because you've always got this play between stretch goals, between where do I want to go in life, how do I want to be, and how am I going to show up now so that I invite that future into my life. How if I want to be a happy person, I'm going to need to process what I'm actually feeling right now in a real way and acknowledge that. And we're incredible, Brene Brown talks about this, we're incredible at bonding over our vulnerabilities and our shame and our suffering. And that's actually a huge human connection. And I did a masterclass recently on stress versus flow. And it was fascinating to me to study this, because often it's about our attitude to what's going on that makes the pivotal difference between whether it's healthy or unhealthy for us. And so when we're under pressure, and burnout is a huge one, you know, when we're under a lot of pressure, and then if we're acknowledging the pressure that we're putting ourselves under, and then at the same time step up to the plate, as in we go, do you know what, I'm capable of dealing with this. I'm capable of processing this. You know, I'm capable of amazing things that I don't even know about yet. And what I'm going to do is use this as an opportunity to know that my body is wise, that when my heart is racing, that when I'm feeling sort of hot, you know, that state of stress, that is my body helping me to step up to the plate, to be able to have alert senses, to be able to increase the blood flow to the brain so that I can process what's going on. You know, it's, if you see the stress response as a way that your body is trying to aid you in the situation, then it helps us to not put shame on that emotion. And putting shame on that emotion would be to try and push it away. That's bad. That feeling of stress is bad. And therefore it's going to make me anxious when I feel that feeling, because I'm demonizing the feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say that's something that I work through with my clients as well, from a coaching perspective, with anxiety and stress as well, is really befriending that emotion. Like, what is that trying to teach me? And that's where the beauty of your yoga, your meditation, your mindfulness, and this self-awareness can really help in a beautiful, safe way. Like, you take it as far as you want to take it. You know, you don't have to kind of, obviously we were speaking about grief earlier, but you know, you don't have to like dive into all the deep dark emotions, just space. And you mentioned burnout there, and I know this is something that you've been quite passionate about supporting people with recently, and you've been running your course, the Burnout Recovery Yoga Pathway, as well. Well, tell me a bit about that course and how that came about, because it sounds really, really interesting.
So I absolutely love what I do, and I like the history. How it came about is through having experienced burnout myself. And I also used it as a strategy. You know, I was bullied at school a bit, and I just dived into my work, and I loved that. And it was a brilliant coping strategy, and it was celebrated, really. I remember my mom shouting down, you know, come downstairs and stop doing your homework. So I kind of grown up with that as a coping mechanism, with diving into work being a coping strategy for things.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, or diving into things they're really good at, or
that's the thing, right? And it is celebrated by our society, like we, you know, and so I didn't realize I was experiencing burnout, you know, and it was, what inspired it was the isolation of the lockdowns, and you know, going from having a job where I was connected to people all day long and physically connected through yoga and partner yoga and acro yoga, to not seeing another human being for 9 months. And that was extremely challenging, and I threw myself into my work, as I think a lot of you maybe have too. Certainly those that are entrepreneurs and things. And I know that it's a very different state when you were on furlough. There's a kind of inertia that was going on that people were having to deal with. But really, when you're looking at burnout, there's a tendency for high achievers to burn out. And one is because the first stage of burnout is a sense of kind of excessive attention on one element of life. And it can actually be, it can be the family, like mums experience burnout because having full attention on the kids and no attention on other stuff, that everything in the world is about the kids, and then they're kind of losing a sense of themselves. And this is part of the stages, you know. It's so that excessive ambition leads to, you know, pushing yourself to work harder, you know, and then you're neglecting your own self-care and needs. And then it's a sort of displacement of conflict. So it's like where you're avoiding dealing with it, as we were talking about being present, being really healthy, that if we're not present, with it, if we don't know how to deal with it because there's too much other stress going on, and so we just push it aside, it can be toxic for ourselves and for each other. And then it sort of we start to justify the why, and so we mess with our own values. And that's, you know, it's like changes in values to validate self-worth. So we start to kind of logically justify, oh, I can't possibly deal with that right now because, you know, I've got all these other things and that's just a pain. And actually, if you go, well, hang on a minute, why am I feeling these feelings? Maybe I need to be, how can I lean in? How can I declutter my life right now in such a way that it allows me to be present with the people that I love, you know, because often we deny our relationships, and we're like, look, don't ask anything of me right now because I'm doing all this other stuff, can't you see? Whereas when that relationship is reaching out to us and saying, hang on a minute, hello, then it's really important to then lean back in, you know. If relationships all about both parties leaning in, you know. And so when we're denying problems, you know, we have shame around it, and then we start to withdraw. Social withdrawals is the seventh stage of burnout, and we start to things that, you know, occasions that we would have loved, we kind of just we don't feel so excited about, we don't really want to engage, and again we justify it logically. The emotion rules the decision, but we bring in the logical mind to justify that and go, oh well, I'm comfy here sitting in my onesie on the couch, you know.
I think even just from those that you've mentioned so far, so many people will be able to relate to those, and especially, you know, after the nearly 2 years that we have had that burnout, I see it in so many clients right now. We're recording this just before Christmas time. Obviously, it's going to come out in January for those that are listening, but I'm receiving numerous emails from people who, you know, you're mentioning there about that removing yourself from social situations where people don't want to do things for Christmas. They don't want to be around people because they're experiencing the sensations of burnout, where it's just another thing to add to their already stressed, overwhelmed list of things. So yeah, I think it's really great that people can begin to identify those aspects that you're discussing there.
What's really important is not to blame yourself. Like, don't blame yourself. If you're feeling these feelings, it's not your fault. It's not, you know, it is something that you can change. It also is not, you know, we are a witness to our environment, and if awareness is the first stage, the first step of healing, you know, to actually become aware of, oh, okay, yeah, this is maybe what I'm going through, you know, because after that social withdrawal comes obvious behavior changes. So me personally, I started having social anxiety. I started took me one time a couple of hours to leave the house. And all I was doing was going to do paddleboarding with some friends. You know, it was really quite a light thing, but because of the experience of beforehand and because of experiencing burnout and not being aware of what I was experiencing that time, I just was like, well, hang on a minute, now I've got social anxiety. Whoa, you know, as a very social person, an outgoing person, that was what is going on here? And it confuses our identity, which is the next step. And then then we have this feeling of kind of emptiness inside, and that can lead to depression or even a breakdown or physical collapse. And I think the really important thing to mention right now is that you have the power to turn that around at any stage of the game. Absolutely. You always have a choice to decide that your future will be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having experienced burnout numerous times in my past, and that's kind of led me to the career that I have now, kind of empowering people, as you say, to just really recognize that actually, yeah, you can. You can always turn it around. And that takes bravery. Like, I think, you know, you mentioned like the plowing on is perceived as being brave. Like, oh, well, just keep going, just keep going. Actually, the brave thing is stopping and making the changes, putting the boundaries in place, you know, having that awareness, okay, this isn't working for me, being able to speak up. And sometimes working with someone like yourself through your burnout recovery program, or a coach, like myself, if it's like anxiety or stress, then that can really support you through that process. And I know I got support through, you know, a healer that I was working with, and various other people along the way to get that support to make the changes.
So important, Susie, and the work you're doing in the world is amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. I just think it's celebrate you. And yeah, if you're in some of those later stages of burnout, then it's really important to have the right community around you where you can be yourself, where you can be in a safe space to talk. You know, and be very mindful about who you talk to, in terms of, you want to be talking to those people that you trust, that you really trust, have your back and are going to build you up. Because when you're in those later stages of burnout, you haven't got the coping strategies to field off, you know, those people that we love that can accidentally say things that are deeply hurtful, or just not so empathetic. It's really important to go to those empathetic people, and if you haven't got that immediate circle, they are out there, you know. And if you're experiencing a sense of depression around burnout, it's not you, it's not a permanent state. This too shall pass. You know, it's what can I do to get back into my own skin? Leaving the house is a really good one. Getting out there in the daylight. It's really simple things, but done incrementally and often make a huge difference. You know, taking your shoes off and walking on the earth, it does something to our electromagnetic field. You know, there is I won't go into it now, but there's a book on grounding that was written by a guy that was an electrician, that through having I think he had insomnia, and so it led to this discovery of when you take your shoes off, the very simplest interpretation that we can do now is that when you take your shoes off, it grounds us, it physically grounds us, and it draws down the sort of anxious energy. If we're thinking of that being up here, then it brings us back down to earth, and it's you know, can alleviate everything from sort of eczema, sort of any inflammatory condition or anxious condition, it can really help with. And so nature is a healer. Absolutely. You know, and if you're feeling any, you know, going back now up to the surface, if you like, if you're feeling a sense of inner emptiness, you know, it's about remembering, what did I used to do that I used to absolutely love? And even if you're not feeling enthusiastic about it right now, put yourself in that situation. So it's almost like the action needs to precede the feeling when you're coming out of it. When you're going into it, the feeling leads, right? But when you're coming out of it, you need to do the things that it takes to create the environment where you're then going to feel better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And then with that social withdrawal, it's like, okay, well, how can I do it in a light way? You know, how can I see maybe one person and be somewhere sunny and beautiful, or, you know, stunning to look at, or not that somewhere that's not going to ask of you personally. Maybe you could go to a gig, or, you know, it's kind of a way that you can ease yourself out of that situation, and feel a sense of comfort, you know, in that. Brene Brown, I'd recommend, if you're dealing with feelings of shame. She is the leading expert. And the self-worth. So it's all about your daily rituals. It's all about how you take those incremental steps each day to frame your mental state to your physical state, you know.
I think that's the thing that sometimes maybe puts a little bit of fear into people, you know, that the change has to be drastic or massive because the emotions that the situation you're in feels, you know, massive. Like, it's like, how am I ever going to get out of here? And literally, my writing journey started actually when I was bedridden. I started a blog, and I would blog each day what I was trying, and it started with things like, today I'm going to start drinking hot lemon water every day. then I'm going to listen to affirmations every day. And I just built and built and built and built, you know, over that period of time. And then before you know it, you're suddenly in this different space and you're like, how did I get here? Because you have built up these incredible rituals and routines with really tiny little incremental steps that can support you.
Yes, Susie, that's exactly it. That's so, it's really inspiring to you say that. And God, good for you. That must have been really tough. Habit stacking is something that really comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's like the idea that if you've got a habit that you already do, and it can be, I wake up and have my morning coffee, right? It doesn't need to be a hugely healthy habit at that first time, right? You can go, right, when I boil the kettle to have my morning coffee, that I'm going to do anyway, I'm going to do my affirmations. I'm just going to say really positive statements, station in the present tense. I'm going to invite my future towards me. I am confident. I am enough. I am loved. I'm loving. You know, it can be as specific. It's better if it's more specific. But integrating a habit, a good habit on top of a habit that you already do makes it infinitely easier to adopt. And then after a while, that'll just become natural. You'll do it as a course of habit, right? Yeah. And then you can do the next one, you know, and then you can start thinking about maybe changing some, like maybe you don't want a coffee, maybe you want that honey, you know, the hot lemon and honey, or just the hot lemon. Yeah, so it's habit stacking is a really useful one. And I mean, do you want me to outline a little bit the 5 steps of burnout recovery?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, pop that in briefly. And then I'd love to know the kind of things that you use yourself to support yourself, the tools and things that support your kind of mental, emotional health as well. So yeah, five steps to burnout recovery would be amazing.
So the burnout recovery yoga pathway was designed because of my personal experience, because of seeing clients experience burnout. And so these are the things that I did that worked for me. And it's also things that I've seen work for clients. And so there's always, you can always take it in the direction you want to take it, that suits you and your unique needs and unique experience and personality. But broadly, they are listen, let go, affirm, act, and integrate. And it's kind of a spiral. I used to call it the happiness spiral. Yeah. So listen is that thing that we were talking about earlier. Listen to what's going on. Acknowledge what stories you're telling yourself around what's going on. Be real with yourself. Like, is this actually true? Is this a story that I'm making up? We're very good at creating meaning around things. You know, humans are story-making machines. And quite a lot of the time we're beating ourselves up unnecessarily. And what the event that happens doesn't mean all these other things that we make it mean. Yeah. Actually, we're making those meanings because of things in our subconscious mind, you know, our past experiences, and we tack on this experience because it's evidence for those. Oh yes, you see, yeah, proves it. Exactly. You see, I'm worthless, or I'm not enough, or you know, I'm unlovable. Those horrible things that we tell ourselves. So the first step is to look at the difference, the stress versus flow, what I was saying about attitude, like turning that attitude to, I'm going to find my flow state. I'm capable. You know, my body is helping me. I can step up to the plate here. I can change this. Yeah. And it's listening to what's going on in your body, listening to where you need to stop and breathe. And so the second step is rest and restore. And there's so many ways to do this. Oops, sorry. Don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that was you or me. Sorry, hands up. So rest and restore, it's like what I do yoga and I do meditation, and I find that to be hugely powerful, and that's a huge thing that I advocate, but it's not the only way. It may be that your rest and restoration is going climbing or paddleboarding. You know, it's something that allows you to feel really a deep sense of relaxation, to get out of your mind and into your body, and gives you space for you, and to do that little and often. The next step, the third, is prime the mind. So you were talking about affirmations being really helpful to you. That is a really key tool. Gratitude is another, like the attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
Mindfulness meditation or other forms of meditation and visualization. Very much depends on what actually works. I love Insight Timer for that.
Me too.
Just great because it's so varied. You can really literally pick something that suits you to a T for that moment. But it's really like essential practices, priming the mind, it just acknowledging the fact that we get to choose how we think. Yes, there's a huge thing for evolution, that we notice what's missing, that we notice the challenge, that we, there's a negative spiral that actually is our natural state. We are designed to notice what's missing so that we can improve it. So therefore happiness is a discipline, it's a practice.
Yeah,
it's something we've actually got to actively do, is like look at the positive, look at what we're grateful for, give ourselves positive affirmation, and acknowledge the celebratory moments. It's that kind of stuff changes. Your I'm sure you explore neuroplasticity in your group, but it's like the science that we can change the way our brains are wired by the way that we think, and what we practice leads to the way that we naturally think. It goes back to that habit stacking, that the neural synapses in the brain will fire in ways that are well practiced. And so if we're looking for a new way to think, we've got to practice it enough that those neural synapses are well practiced. And then of course it's the way that we frame our lives. So sacred scheduling and ritualizing happiness which is act and integrate, right? So sacred scheduling is treating your time like it's sacred. Treat your attention like it's sacred. Look at where you're focusing your attention. Don't be, what can you do to be more autonomous about where you put your attention? Can you choose that, I'm going to eliminate all notifications after 9 p.m. I'm going to not look at my phone for an hour before bed, or when I'm with somebody, I'm going to be 100% with that person. I'm not going to have distractions around.
I love that idea of sacred scheduling. There's actually a meditation on Insight Timer by Sarah Blondin, which is called Make Your Life Sacred. It's a beautiful one to help people just connect into what that is for you as an individual.
It's mastering your attention, isn't it? And it's creating space in your schedule so that you can access your creative zone of genius faster. So if you're trying to get things done, actually it helps to not do the other things. Saying no is one of the most powerful words that we can have, so that we can say yes with authenticity. So often we're people pleasers. We really want to please all the people all the time, and that's never possible, because usually if we're trying to please everyone else, we're not going to be able to live a happy life for ourselves. And we're going to be pulled in so many directions. So learning how to say no to what isn't going to serve that longer term vision, that life goal that you have, knowing that, okay, this isn't in alignment with that of where I'm going in my life. And even though, yes, thank you, I love you, but I'm afraid I don't have. And we can go down that in the course. We go down sort of ways that we can frame it, because people kind of go, okay, I'd like to do that, but I don't know how.
Totally. I mean, it's a big one, isn't it? Just creating that boundaries, even just working out what is important for you. It is a big process, but it's great that you can support people with that through that whole process.
Well, you said a really amazing word in that sentence there, and that's boundaries. Learning how to hold healthy boundaries is huge, life-changing.
Absolutely.
And the fifth is ritualized happiness. So you've got stress versus flow, rest and restore, prime the mind, sacred scheduling, and then ritualized happiness. So it's integrating all of those practices and taking it forward in your life. So it's kind of not going, hey, these are the tools, bye. It's kind of right. It's like, okay, what's working, what's not, what am I finding challenge with, and also listening to your own inner energy. So it's sort of how is your energy showing up in the day? Like, are you a morning person? Do you bounce out of bed? So if you do, what can you be doing? How can you frame your time and your attention in such a way that you make the most out of that natural energy that you have at that time? You know, if you're someone who, it varies according to introverts and extroverts, if you're someone who has a bit of a dip after lunch, like I am, but I'm an extrovert, so I often fix client appointments after lunch, because I'm in a listening state, I'm in a receptive state, but also interacting boosts up that energy again, so that by the time you reach the end of the day, I feel like, oh, I've got energy for the evening, you know, and you're not sort of collapsing on the couch as so many people are. Oh, I'm totally exhausted at the end of the day. Instead, you're like, oh, I framed my energy according to my natural nadis, the yoga nadis, which is a natural way to design your days to sustain your energy and get more done with less effort.
I love it.
So that's that little method in synopsis. I mean, all of that is something that I experienced, and so it's I don't know if you want me to go down that road anymore, was that clear? And
yeah, no, that was amazing. That was amazing. That was awesome. So obviously we kind of discussed boundaries, burnout there, and I know, like, when feeling burnt out, you can feel quite restricted, and you know, your life can feel quite small. But the you know, the name of the podcast is Be Free. The name of my book is Be Free. One of my core values is that sensation of freedom and being free, and you know, kind of desires for others to experience that. And I just wondered, what makes you feel that? What makes you, give you that sensation of feeling free?
Oh, I love that, Susie. What a great question. Freedom and adventure, yeah, they are two of my core values, and connection. And so I'd say the combination of those things gives me a sense of freedom. And so doing new and exciting things, having adventures in nature, you know, going and supping on a loch, that is, I love it. I went cycling around the Highlands with my bro this year, so doing things like that really helps me feel free, connection to nature and doing exercise at the same time. Win-win.
Love it.
But I think it's like a high warmth in my life, as well as actually high structure. So I feel a sense of freedom when it's like, if you say to a painter, paint a painting, they're going to come back and say, but what's your inspiration? What are the boundaries here? You know, it's like when I've got a sense of structure around my life, I feel like that I can immerse myself in the moment, you know.
Absolutely, I get that.
You know, it's and that they say that is a great thing within communities, that we feel, you know, when we have a sense of belonging, a sense of high warmth in a community, then also when that community has a sense of structure, it helps us to feel safe. And when we feel safe, there's an element of, you know, we reveal ourselves, you know, we go, oh, I can relax and be me. Oh, okay, great. And then you've got that freedom for parts of yourself that if you were navigating all of those frameworks yourself, like if you were just going out there and the world was chaotic, then you'd be holding back quite a bit because you'd be navigating. Whereas when there's an element of structure, you can go, oh, and you can relax within that space.
Incredible.
So,
yeah, I love that, because, you know, yeah, as I say, like, freedom is one of my core values, but I am absolutely a planner, scheduler, in order that I can live my life to the fullest, so that I can do the things that I need to do, have to do, want to do, but then also have that space to, yeah, have the freedom to do whatever that may be. I love that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Cat has already shared a masterclass within the Spirit and Soul membership, which was on the 4 pillars of happiness, which was incredible. And this is another framework that Cat has created that was so beneficial and so helpful to my members. And if anybody, you know, members want to go back, they can go check that out. Or if you're coming into the membership in the future, know that you will have access to Cat's masterclass there. But for anyone that's listening, is there any little tips you could give people to boost their happiness in 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. So being present with what is, and practicing self-love and gratitude. I think gratitude is huge. I mean, the pillars of happiness, having a sense of peace, that first pillar, peace, is not about masking. It's about really showing up. It's about being present. What are you practicing every day? What are you practicing? I love my life. Or are you practicing things to look at that are going wrong? You know, and noticing that and going, oh, actually, I'm going to start to practice I love my life. And then see how it's, again, leading with the action and the feelings show up, you know. So yeah, like practicing gratitude each day is a really great one. What can you do that helps you feel more present? Like I was saying about, if you're with somebody, like, can you put your phone aside and be just fully present with that person? And if you commit to just a small step and just say, right, every person that I relate with, I'm going to be fully present with that person, and I'm just going to notice what happens to our relationship. And you, I guarantee, will notice that those relationships go much deeper, much sooner, and feel much richer. So doing something like that is can be a really good tip for happiness. I mean, but that's just the beginning. You know, we talked a lot about play, we talked about having a sense of purpose, and also power. You know, what does power mean to you? And if there are loads of negative connotations, which there kind of are as well, you know, then no wonder we're not stepping into our power. You know, if we've got negative connotations around it, we need to look at that and go, okay, what am I hiding from here? And what am I trying to avoid? I don't want to be a bad person. And I've got news for you. If you are even having that thought, you are not a bad person. And you couldn't be if you tried. You know, it's like actually having curiosity around self-awareness, and, you know, having an intention that you want to grow and improve and contribute to the world. You're a good person. And like, being imperfect is just part of being human. We're all imperfect. It's like you said at the beginning of this call, you said, I'm into progress, not perfection. And it's exactly that, right? It's like, great. Then we can all step into empowered versions of ourselves, because we're not going, oh, it's got to be perfect. We're going, yeah, let's do it. Let's do the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, progress over perfection. That's kind of my tagline, having been a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist. Now I'm like, no, there's no such thing as perfection. So let's just do the thing in 2022. So Kat is relaunching her own membership in January, which is very, very exciting. And it's based around your 4 pillars of happiness. And do you want to just tell people a little bit about that, and then maybe how they can connect with you, or if they want to dive deeper with you, how they can do that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Susie. So I mean, I would love for you to come and talk to my community in 2022. That would be amazing. It's so the membership, so in lockdown I ran a membership that was daily practices, and now, you know, it's just too much for people to show up every single day. So I've sort of rejigged it according to the life that we now live post pandemic. So it's an online community. There's a mix of lives and a mix of pre-records, but it's around the themes of happiness and getting yourself into an amazing state of happiness, and actually authentic happiness, that it does undulate, you know, and that's okay. That's the part of living, right? It does ebb and flow in different ways. It's about finding harmony, not balance. You know, it's not about I will do equal amounts of things every day, otherwise it's like, hang on, let's go with the flow of what's happening, explore a theme that month, dive into what does that really mean and how does that relate to my life. So it's yoga, it's meditation, and it's coaching as well. So we'll have a sangha, which is a yoga word for a community gathering, and we'll gather together and explore a limb of yoga and an element of happiness, and just have awareness around it and a bit of time to look at how that shows up in your life. And then we move to the next one each month. So it's a really supportive, the intention is that it supports you in your personal, professional and spiritual growth, that actually you get a chance, a space where you can dive deeper into your practice, and you can bounce off other people that are going through that same journey. Yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Sounds incredible. Yeah, everything I'm about. Yeah, community, connection, and kind of traveling that path together. So from a connection point of view, what's the best way for people to connect with you? I will pop all your links in the comments of YouTube, IGTV, podcast, etc. But what's your preferred way? Or I know you've got incredible blogs, for example, on your website and your email list, but what's the best way for people
So
to...
I'd say right now the best way is go to Cat Duval, CATDUVAL.co.uk. And there's ways to connect with me there. It's got links to all my social channels. And like you said, Susie, that's great if you've got the social links here. I'm going to be putting up a new piece of content every week. So if you're interested in diving a bit deeper or just getting to know me a bit more, then keep an eye out for that. That's going to go on YouTube and be on my blog in the coming year. And if you want to dive deeper into the Burnout Recovery Yoga Pathway or the 4 Pillars of Happiness, then you've got avenues with coaching, and the membership is there to hold space as well. But obviously you've got your membership. So, I don't want to find space for that, but at the same time, it's like, we're looking at the deep dive into the high warmth and high framework, so you're looking at, right, how can I implement this happiness into my life? And often it's about focusing on the things that create your happiness.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm mixing my words now. But ways that people can connect with me is to go on my website and just ping me an email, or go on any of the social channels and just ping me a message, and let's just start chatting.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Well, I'm excited to see what lies ahead in 2022, and yeah, excited to hear more about yoga raves. That's one of my takeaways from today's chat. And yeah, like there's so much goodness there, and Kat's got some incredible content on her website and blogs and things that will support you as well. So thank you so much for coming on today, chatting to everybody. And yeah, I really can't wait to connect with you in this 2022 and beyond.
Oh, me too, Susie. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you had something useful in there. And yeah, it was a real joy to chat with you today, Susie. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. See you later. Thank you.
All right, bye.